Welcome to Tokyo. We travel because we fall in love with people and places. 10 good reasons is all it takes. 10 reasons that awaken all your senses. Let us discover together, admire, grasp, breathe in and savor the best of Tokyo. Reason number 1. Edo. A castle town by the 1600s, Edo was chosen as the seat of the Tokugawa shogunate in 1603 and was later renamed Tokyo in 1868 when it became the capital of Japan after the Meiji Restoration and departure from Kyoto, the previous seat of the Japanese imperial house. Japan remains until today under imperial rule, its government being officially denominated as a unitary parliamentary constitutional monarchy. The Edo period, also known as O-Edo, the Great Edo, from 1603 to 1868, was a time of internal peace, while the power was in the hands of the shogun and 300 daimyo, powerful feudal lords all across Japan. During this time, Japan's international stance was that of isolation, while internally there was a focus on developing the arts and culture. Understanding the intricacies of power struggles between clans, daimyo warlords, samurais, and shogun military rulers takes a master's degree in Japanese culture, which I don't possess. But, from what I understand, lineage was passed on mostly by blood in peacetime, while in war times it was the survival of the fittest. This unkindly simplified picture brings us to the romanticized figure of the samurai. The bushi or samurai rose to hold extreme power during the Edo period, turning into the uppermost caste of the Edo social system, a profoundly military group of men whose aim in life was to serve their lord, and excel in cutting off the heads of their enemies with uttermost speed and accuracy, all in the Confucian spirit of loyalty, self-discipline, and ethics. The Samurai Ninja Museum and the Sword Museum, both in Tokyo, explain it much better, I'm certain, retelling to this day highly venerated stories of samurai bravery in battles for lands and supremacy. The Tokyo National Museum, the Edo Tokyo Museum, reopening in 2025, and the Edo Tokyo Open Air Museum go on to retell the stories of how people lived and strived in historic Japan, with impressive ethnographic displays of cityscapes, building techniques, homes, theaters, and social events, among many others. The National Museum is the largest in Japan and is made up of several buildings, housing the country's most important treasures and cultural artifacts that have defined it. You can also catch historic reenactments in all major cities. Reason number 2. Imperial. Monarchy in Japan has existed since about 600 years BC, and the emperor is said to be divine, descending from a goddess, immune to any prosecution, and head of the Shinto religion. The seat of the royal family is at the Imperial Palace, previously known during the Tokugawa shogunate as the Edo Castle. The Imperial Palace is centrally located and receives many visitors, although they have only access to the grounds and gardens, since the emperor lives and conducts official business from there, as the official head of state. Naruhito, the current ruler, is the only one in the world still called an emperor. Nevertheless, true executive powers are vested in the cabinet of ministers. You will reach the castle from the Tokyo subway station in Marunouchi, a financial and business district with high-rises occupied by major corporations, plus fancy hotels, restaurants, and art galleries. Most of the land belongs to Mitsubishi, who have contributed to the renaissance of the public areas of Marunouchi, including its iconic subway station, rebuilt to its former 1914 appearance. The current imperial palace dates from after 1888 or much later, like the late 20th century, while the previous Edo castle was often consumed by fires. Compared to other royal palaces, The Tokyo Imperial Palace is rather serious in design, with simple lines, though following traditional Japanese architecture. It has a very large banquet hall, the Homeiden, a stateroom or saiden with a Matsunoma room where the throne sits, a drawing room, a grand hall, and others, as well as a large courtyard. On New Year and on the Emperor's birthday, the public is allowed to enter this courtyard and hear words from the monarch. The gardens are divine. I personally opted for visiting the gardens and to take a tour around the whole premises along the moat. If you have 3 hours to spare, go for it. It's cathartic. The views are splendid and you will be mostly alone on this meditative stroll. Reason number 3, art. Japanese objects of art are among my favorites in the world, and I'm guilty of getting a few touristic versions here and there. Originals made by Japanese masters are out of my range. Let's dive right into it, the inro. These little masterpieces are actually small purses, mostly men's purses, compartmentalized in stacked layers to hold small items, since kimonos don't have pockets. Interestingly, most of the ones worn by samurai and their contemporaries were made by hardening paper layers with lacquer, and then decorating them with painted designs, inlays, ivory, nacre or gold metal foiling. Indro can also be made of wood or metal, for example. On one end, the indro had a netsuke, a tiny sculpture meant to embellish and serve to tie the indro around the obi of the kimono. The netsuke also became, like the inro, works of art, and only the wealthy were able and allowed to display them, depending on their rank. Both are highly collectible today, privately as well as by museums. In the same category belong the Japanese fans. Not the music fans, but the ones used to cool yourself off with. Japanese war fans were used by samurai in battle to signalize orders. Both men and women used fans, and only experts can tell their actual value and use. I find them pretty, since I'm always hot. The touristic versions make excellent souvenirs and little gifts. For Japanese decorative paintings, scrolls, and folding screens, I need another life. Their artistry is above and beyond the normal. If I could start from scratch and study again, I will study Japanese art. Until then, I can only admire them and share here a few. My favorite Japanese painter is Ito Yakucho, a painter from the Edo era, who is as fresh and as current today as if he would be still around. I have to put them horizontal so they can fit better in. There is so much more to Japanese art, I don't have words. Reason number 4. Shibuya. For this one, I'm going to let images speak for themselves. But first, let me tell you that you don't go to Shibuya just to cross the street. Shibuya is a ward of the city of Tokyo of respectable size, with almost 250,000 inhabitants. Its name comes from a landlord and a castle that has existed there for centuries, from the 1100s. Here are a few places you can visit in Shibuya. The Ebisu district for bars and restaurants. The very well-known Harajuku area for shopping, particularly underground local fashion, boutique-style coffee shops, and impromptu street fashion happenings. The Omotesando for its collection of most high-end fashion flagship stores. The Yoyogi district for the huge Yoyogi Park, skyscrapers and restaurants. Or the Sendagaya district for sport venues, such as the Olympic Stadium, theaters, opera, and more, plus a long list of more unusual museums that might interest you. For most people, though, Shibuya is the scramble crossing right by the Shibuya subway station, a must-visit when in Tokyo. You have to spend some time there. It is hypnotic to watch how people gather at all corners just to pour into the crossing in all directions. It is a great example of what people can do when allowed to break the rules, and how chaos can be managed when needed in a strangely harmonious way. That area in particular is where the nightlife happens and where the youth culture strives. It is surrounded by busy streets with tons of commercial venues and stores, as well as pedestrian avenues teeming with humans going after their own business. I find it comforting to become lost in such a sea of people, to become one more transcending body that does no longer stand out, but adapts swiftly to the flow, and to feel as if their lives happen aside from yours, in an alternate universe that only becomes real when you take your earphones out. It is liberating. Statistically, it is the busiest street crossing in the world, with about 3,000 people using it each time the light changes. Where do they all come from? Reason number 5, Asakusa. Within this very well-loved travel spot, you will find the main Sensoji Temple, the 5-storied pagoda, the Denboin Temple Garden, the Asakusa Shinto Shrine, the Nakamise Shopping Street, the Shin Nakamise Shopping Arcade, and the gates Kaminarimon and Hosomon. Now let's discover them in order, after you step out of the Asakusa subway station. But before we go on this trip, it's important to know that the Sensoji Temple, also called Asakusa Kanon, is the oldest temple in Tokyo from the mid-600s, albeit fully reconstructed after it was razed to the ground in 1945. Same applies to almost all of the aforementioned structures. Without a doubt, it is the most visited temple, with 30 million visitors per year. The 11 meters tall Kaminarimon, or Thunder Gate, is your first stop. After passing through it, you find yourself in an unexpected vintage-looking shopping street, with about 90 shops selling typical souvenirs and bargains, the Nakamise Shopping Street. On your left, you'll find the way to the Shin Nakamise Shopping Arcade. Make sure you return to explore. It was my favorite shopping place, with local crafts, well-affordable eateries, and second-hand kimono shops. Just divine. After walking the Nakamise Shopping Street straight up to the temple, you pass through the second gate, the gigantic 22 meters tall Hosomon, and enter the temple's courtyard. Go with the flow and enter the temple. The Sensoji Temple is dedicated to the Buddhist deity Kannon and is the location of a spectacular religious festival in spring, the Sanja Matsuri. Kannon is considered the most benevolent deity and can be observed taking different shapes, with 11 faces, with 1,000 hands, or with a Nyorin or the wish-granting jewel and Dharma wheel. Around the temple, you can find the religious structures of a pagoda and a shrine. You will need a full day in Asakusa to see everything. Reason number 6, kimono. Aside from the generic word that encompasses all traditional Japanese garments, there is an exhaustive lexicon that goes with the Japanese national dress that dates back to the Heian period about 1,000 years ago. The kimono was used by all, women, men, and children, throughout history, and is worn today for special occasions. One rule of wearing a kimono has remained constant all this time. The dress code, or kitsuke, demands to close it left over right, independent of gender. Here are a few words you might want to add to your kimono vocabulary. Obi, the sash or belt that ties it around the waist. Sori, the sandals. Tabi, the socks. Hakama, the white pants or skirts. Yukata, the most informal kind of kimono. Furisode, the kimono with very long sleeves. And the kamon, the crest printed on it that marks the levels of formality of the attire. The fabric patterns and dyes used for kimonos are multiple. Indigo was used for tie-dyeing, as well as for the technique that produced kasuri fabrics with blurred patterns. The more modern mason fabrics were cheaper, with brighter colors and more resistant. Most of the second-hand kimonos now available for sale are mason ones. Kimonos were historically made of silk, and the so-called kabutai silk has the glossiest shine. It is currently used for the most costly kimonos, worn at weddings and at other special ceremonies, and still highly popular today. In the Shin-Nakamise shopping arcade at Asakasa, you can find old kimonos for as little as $10 in superb shape, as well as splendid obis. Make sure you look them up. Reason number 7, Japan. Tokyo is the capital of Japan, a densely populated island nation of more than 14,000 islands. 5 are the largest: Hokkaido, Honshu, Shikoku, Kyushu, and Okinawa. I picked 10 cities from Okinawa to Hokkaido, just as a sample of what Japan has to offer. Rarely do we have a chance to see a whole country from top to bottom. Here is what you should try to see, what you might have missed, or what would be a good reason to return. Okinawa, Kumamoto, Fukuoka, Osaka, Nara, Kyoto, Nagoya, Yokohama, Nagano, and Sapporo. Let's jump on a train or plane and let's go! Okinawa, the Ryukyu archipelago and the Okinawa island are the home of the Ryukyu people. Okinawa is a tad bit different than the rest of Japan, in traditions, culture, cuisine, and more. It is warm, subtropical, with splendid waters, views, and beaches, and very healthy. Kumamoto, the city has one of the best examples of fortified castles in Japan, with still intact parts as well as beautiful gardens and shrines. The nature sites surrounding Kumamoto are breathtaking. Mount Aso, an active volcano, hiking trails, and hot springs are popular travel destinations for nature lovers. Fukuoka. A port on the shores of the Hakata Bay, Fukuoka is a university city, a meetings and incentives destination, and a passenger cruise hub. It has many historic sites along with modern touristic spots, parks, museums, zoos, gardens, beaches, and more. Osaka, third largest city in Japan. Osaka is a main transportation hub with tens of thousands of shops and restaurants, markets, concert venues, and many other highly touristic areas. Culinary specialties abound, including giant king crabs, and the city is considered one of the food capitals of the world. Nara, the city of reindeer. The Sika sacred deer of Nara are one of the most known attractions of this historic city. I would immediately add its temples and shrines. You can easily stroll to see them all in a day, starting from the Todaiji Temple with its giant guardian statues and the world's largest Buddha statue, all originals, plus the Yakushiji Temple and the Kasuga Taisha Shrine, all together part of a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Kyoto, the former capital of Japan and its current cultural capital, can hardly be put in one paragraph. Kyoto is a must-see on every travel plan. Look up my episode on Kyoto to find out what to see and what to do. Nagoya, Japan's fourth largest city. Nagoya is also the country's largest port. It has modern touristic attractions such as entertainment parks, a zoo and an aquarium, art galleries, shopping venues, all alongside traditional Japanese gardens, shrines, and the stunning Nagoya Castle. Yokohama, second in size only to Tokyo, this giant metropolis is highly relevant in matters of industry, transport, commerce, and culture. It is the home of the Nissan, Kenwood, and Isuzu corporations, among many others, an important seaport, and its attractions and offerings are too many to enumerate. Nagano, a winter sports destination, host of the 1998 Winter Olympics, Nagano is surrounded by mountains and ski resorts, beautiful to visit in any season. In town, the preserved Matsushiro Castle and old samurai buildings can be visited, as well as art museums of Japanese masters. Sapporo. Like Nagano, Sapporo also hosted the Winter Olympics once, a bit earlier in 1972, and is bidding again for 2030. Its dome also hosted football and rugby World Cup matches. It is the northernmost largest city of Japan and ranks number 1 as the prettiest, with its gardens and parks, hosting many festivals and offering unique culinary specialties. Want to see more Japanese cities and sights? Next time. Reason number 8. Cosplay. Considering how artsy Japanese people are, is no wonder that they go overboard when dressing up in a costume. Cosplay, meaning playing while dressed up in a costume, is a term coined in Japan. But people have liked to disguise since they exist. Even theater is actually a cosplay when actors dress up as a character and pretend, artfully, to be someone else. Japanese cosplaying is the dominant phenomenon, though. It is so colorful and extravagant that the rest of the world is loving it and paying attention. Growing past reenacting historic eras, cosplay is actually pure fantasy and the wildest ever. Cosplayers dress up as fictional characters from Japanese anime, manga graphic novels, comic books, video games, and so on. A true cult has been created around these costumed exhibitions and interactions, with no sign of slowing down. I was very curious how the rest of the local population tackles dressing up for Halloween, and decided to head to Shibuya, out of all places, to watch. Whole television crews were on site, and every single soul had a phone in hand. But what I found most endearing was the eagerness of the costumed youths to show off, smile, and do cute stuff for the cameras. I think I regressed 10 years in age that evening. Maybe the crowd was not as glamorous as the Carnevale in Venice, but they were more excited, more civil, more polite, and far less inebriated compared to many other Halloweens I had witnessed before. Since they say that up to 3,000 people cross the scramble crossing in Shibuya each time the light changes, there must have been 100,000 people there that night. Towards midnight, the youngest ones dissipated, and slowly people retired to their homes, bars, clubs, or other activities. There was absolutely no incident, no loud noises, or inappropriate behavior of any kind. One last thought. I remain firm in my assessment that women love to dress up as much as men, but not necessarily as a man, while men love to dress up as women more than anything. I will go back to Halloween there anytime. What a pleasant experience. Reason number 9, fish. Good morning, everyone. Time to go fishing. Just kidding. It's time to go shopping for fish, or at least to see how the local chefs in Tokyo shop for fish at the wee hours of the morning at the Tsukiji, Toyosu, and Adachi fish markets. Tokyo's largest fish market is called Toyosu, but wait, it is also the largest in the world. This crown had belonged to the Tsukiji market until 2018, when, due to space constraints, the wholesale market moved to Toyosu, which is significantly larger. Tsukiji still conserves the charming outer market with eateries, and is a good place to eat fish and seafood before noon. To see the tuna auctions, you need to be there at Toyosu at 5 a.m. to get a good spot. It is free to watch. Toyosu currently handles all the wholesale of fish and seafood, and supplies all local restaurants and stores in Tokyo. Toyosu and Tsukiji are in the center of Tokyo, while Adachi is a bit farther out, but seems to be less expensive. Adachi also specializes in seafood. All three offer the best fresh creatures coming out of the sea that you can ever dream of. I love raw fish, but I'm not an expert, and I'm sure I'm not alone in this. When in Japan, my choice, please don't laugh, is to eat at a restaurant that has sample plates in the window. This way I can see my options without having to limit myself to ordering in generic terms sushi or sashimi. And I also like the restaurants where they parade the actual servings in front of your nose on a conveyor belt. These have become popular outside of Japan as well, but you can't compare the fish and seafood quality. Maybe next time I brush up a bit on Japanese dishes and go more upscale. There is always a next time, isn't it? Reason number 10. Sake. Ask me what goes best with raw or fresh fish. The answer is easy. Sake. Why? Because so many millions of people in Japan can't be wrong after working on it for over 2,000 years. What is sake actually? It is said to be a rice wine, but the process of making sake is different from that of wine, beer, or spirits. It is not made by fermenting the sugar in fruit into alcohol like the wine does, neither by brewing like the beer does, neither by distilling like spirits do. Sake is made by converting starch into sugar and fermenting it at the same time. It contains way more alcohol than both beer and wine, but it's not a liquor. It's just sake, one of the most refined drinks you can have, with a huge variety to please all tastes, be it consumed hot or chilled. I think sake is perfect. In Japan, what we know as sake is called nihonshu, while all alcoholic drinks are generically called sake. Take note when ordering. What I also love about sake is the artistry of its serving ceremony and of the serving dishes, bottles, and so forth. These fit easily in a suitcase, just saying. There is a food and agriculture museum in Tokyo that covers a lot of the history and tradition of sake making and drinking, and many museums have large collections of historic and vintage sake cups, caskets, and more. Don't leave Japan without a sake tasting or a Japanese whiskey tasting for that matter. Pairing different kinds of whiskey shots with a menu of several small dishes is a fancy way of going about it. And I easily found this service at nice restaurants. I seriously consider Japan the best place to eat in the world. And the drinks are the cherry on the cake. Cheers! Or kanpai! Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please don't smash any buttons. Just gently like and subscribe for more. The world is vast and it's all yours. Next time, you might also want to fall in love with this next destination over there. Thank you.